Hey everyone, welcome to the Elixir Crash Course. It is my goal with this course to teach you the minimum amount of Elixir for you to become dangerous. And by dangerous, I mean productive. You're gonna be able to, once you finish this course, to quickly learn Phoenix and start shipping features. My goal here is to teach you the basics of Elixir. Now, I am calling this a crash course and not a course because it's not going to be a full blown course where I'm going to cover every single topic of Elixir. No, this is a crash course. I'm going to cover the most important things. There are some advanced topics that me personally I haven't used, like OTP. I think it's cool. I read about it, but I to this day I haven't had a good opportunity to use it. So I don't know. I don't feel the need to teach it right now. Maybe in the future I'll add more classes regarding processes, agents, tasks, uh, and some advanced features from Elixir, but not right now. I think for now I'll just teach you the bare minimum. Okay, so let's start. Why on earth would you learn Elixir? What is the reason? Well, there are multiple things about Elixir that makes me extremely happy. Let me go over some of the features of the language, and you can check the official documentation on elixir-lang.org. So, Elixir, if you don't know, is a dynamic, functional language for building scalable and maintainable applications. Now, this is important. It is a dynamic language. Currently, we don't have types for Elixir, but if you are a types fanboy, don't worry. You can go to blog and you can see this here. Take a look. Elixir version 1.17 released, set theoretic types in patterns, and some other goodies. So the Elixir team, the Elixir core team, with the help of a couple of researchers, they are actively working on adding a type system for Elixir. If you're watching this course on the future, maybe there are types in Elixir already, and I'm here using the Elixir version without types. I don't know. And José Valim, he said that he's trying his best to implement the type system. If he thinks that the type system is not good enough, then he's not going to add the type systems. So there is a possibility of we not getting types for Elixir. But with how things are going lately, I think we are getting. So I am optimistic about the addition of a type system for Elixir. Another important thing to note is that Elixir is a functional language. And I'm going to have a dedicated video just to explain this topic and show a couple of differences from JavaScript, for example, which is my area of expertise. But just know that on Elixir, we don't have classes, we don't have inheritance, we don't have objects, but mainly we don't have mutability. So on Elixir, we work with transformations. Instead of getting a variable and mutating it, we're always generating new versions of that variable based on transformations that we want to do on top of it. So for example, take a look at the example on the homepage. Here, you can see that we have a string, and then this is the pipe operator. We use it to this is sort of a synthetic sugar to make it look better, the fact that we're calling multiple functions on top of something. So here we're doing two transformations. We are calling this function graphemes, which is from the string module, and then we're calling the frequencies function, which is from the enum module. So yeah, we're not mutating this data. We're getting the Elixir string, transforming it with this first function, and then transforming it again on this second function. And then this is the end result. we didn't change the Elixir function. We generated, the Elixir string, sorry. We generated a new result after doing these transformations, right? And by using a functional programming language, since we don't have classes and objects, all we have to create our entire applications are mostly modules and functions. And that's it. And I love it. I love the simplicity of this. Because me personally, whenever I'm using any language, I'm like, okay, can I just use functions here? Because I don't want to create a class. I don't like creating classes. In my mind, it doesn't make sense. I don't know. I never liked classes. And I graduated in engineering, but it still doesn't make sense in my head. So yeah, it's a functional programming language. And this one is also very important to mention. It is used for building scalable and maintainable applications. And Elixir was created by José Valim. José Valim was part of the core team of Rails, and after encountering some scalability issues with Rails, he decided to create Elixir to solve those issues. The main issue that he was trying to solve from Rails, and I'm mentioning Rails, but this is not specific only to Rails. This is most of the languages that are used nowadays, they have this problem of not using all the resources of the machine that you're deploying. So on Elixir, if I have a machine with a ton of RAM and 10 CPU cores, Elixir is going to use those 10 CPU cores. In the traditional languages, they're not. We have a bunch of limitations regarding vertical scaling, which is not a problem for Elixir. Where like traditional languages, they have GIL, which is the global interpreter lock, where it prevents your application to truly running in parallel and concurrently. It's a bit annoying, and Elixir can truly scale, especially vertically, but also horizontally. It is an extremely easy language to do distribution. So let's go over a couple of examples. Oh, and if you want to check some of the use cases for Elixir, you can just click on cases here. And then you can read sort of a blog post explaining how some companies like Discord is leveraging Elixir to build amazing systems. It's very interesting, and I recommend you take a look into here if you are unsure about the potential of Elixir. Whoops. Let me go back to the homepage. Okay, so for scalability, Elixir under the hood is running on processes. Now, this is not a traditional operating system process. Elixir runs on top of something that we call the Erlang virtual machine. And inside that virtual machine, Elixir can run on a lightweight process inside the Erlang VM, and it is super lightweight compared to a traditional OS process. This way, we can easily spawn thousands of processes without crashing our Elixir server. It's lightweight. And it is extremely easy to do vertical scaling with Elixir because those processes are lightweight, and we do functional programming as well besides using the Erlang VM. So all of our Elixir processes, they're independent, they have their own memory, and they run in parallel concurrently, which means that if we have 100 CPU cores, we can just distribute all those processes alongside all of those CPU cores, which is nice. This is actually one of the reasons why, for example, if you visit the Phoenix framework, which is the Ruby on Rails for Elixir, the slogan here is peace of mind. From prototype to production, you can easily scale an Elixir server. It also has fault tolerance. On Elixir, we have something very cool called supervisors. They are responsible for sort of managing the processes of your system. And if there's a bug into a process, the supervisor is going to quickly restart that process. So instead of this bug propagating to other parts of your application, no. The supervisor detects the bug that you accidentally introduced. It is going to kill that process and then restart ASAP. So one of the nice memes that we talk about when we're speaking about Elixir is let it crash, right? Because if you add a bug on an Elixir process, we have the supervisor that quickly detects it, restart it, and once you are back on the initial state, then your user can keep using your website no problem. And yeah, we also have some features from the language, functional programming, we have DSLs, and I wanted to talk about this specifically. Tooling features. We have a growing ecosystem. Elixir ships with a great set of tools to ease development. Now, if you are a JavaScript developer like me, you got used to creating a new application and then having a ton of crap at your root folder. Like we have a tsconfig, we have a config file for Webpack, another one for Babel, another one for Prettier, another one for ESLint, and then we end up with a bunch of JSON and .config files on the root. And if I get an example of a test Elixir application that I created, take a look into this. Besides the traditional Git files like git ignore and the readme, look at the Elixir files. We have a formatter.exs, and this is built in Elixir. And we have mix, which is the equivalent of the package.json. And that's it. I don't have any other configuration files because it's built in Elixir. And if you take a look at the dependency array for this new empty project, there is nothing, absolutely nothing. I have a formatter, and I don't need to install a package for that. I have testing with XUnit. I don't need to install a package for that. I also have documentation built in Elixir. I don't have to install a package for that. So it's a growing ecosystem. Jose mentioned on a couple of interviews that he learned a lot from Go, and Go has a lot of built-in features like a formatter. And he said that he liked that idea of having some things built in on the language. I would love JavaScript to have a built-in formatter, but we don't have it. So it's a bit unfortunate, and Elixir has it. It's super cool. And yeah, that's it. Elixir is cool as hell. And if you are like a solo developer and you want to become an entrepreneur, you want to create your own SaaS, you want to ship fast, if your priority is development speed, then Phoenix got you covered. And Phoenix, we have something really cool called Heeks for the front end. Now, I am primarily a front end developer, so having a nice front end code to me was mandatory before changing the language that I use. And then on Heeks, we have reusable components, we have compiler checks, we have formatting, we also have live view to build interactive front ends. It's really cool. And just like Rails, Phoenix lets you focus on shipping features, right? We have built-in authentication, built-in Phoenix. You don't need to install a third-party package for that. We have, yeah, it's scalable. We have presence, database, real-time, everything built in on Elixir and Phoenix. So yeah, it's a batteries included framework. If you're coming to learn Elixir because you want a batteries included framework, we have Phoenix. And that's pretty much my overview, my elevator pitch to sell you learning Elixir. Now, there are a couple of reasons for not learning Elixir that I wanted to mention. The first one is if you are a beginner and you want to learn Elixir as your first programming language, I don't think it's a good idea. Why? Because Elixir uses functional programming, and I think this is the future, but you're not going to be able to reuse a lot of the Elixir knowledge that you gained on other ecosystems because they use object-oriented programming. The majority of the languages out there use OOP. So if this is your first language and you want to deep dive into Elixir and then later transfer that knowledge to other languages, you're going to have a hard time because it's very different from traditional languages. Another second situation that I don't think Elixir is a good fit for is, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of job opportunities for Elixir. It's growing. Every time I visit the Stack Overflow survey, I see multiple people saying that they tried Elixir and Phoenix and they love Phoenix. It's one of the most loved web frameworks out there. But still, if all you want is to find a job, right now, at the time of me filming this video, it might not be a good idea. So if all you want is a job, then go study JavaScript, Java, C#, something that is more widely adopted. Elixir is growing super fast, and we have a lot of learning resources for it, but it's not at the level of other languages, okay? And if you want other learning resources for Elixir, you can also visit my project called Tech School. Here you can learn Elixir for free. If you don't like my course, you can watch somebody else's course. So visit techschool.dev. You're going to click on courses. And then here inside the language filter, you can click Elixir. There you go. We have a bunch of websites that teach you Elixir and videos. And once you're done with Elixir and you want to learn Phoenix, you can clear the Elixir filter and then go back on Framework and select Phoenix. And there you go. All the resources that are here are 100% free. And if you want a complete bootcamp, like a full stack Elixir and Phoenix covering everything, like HTML, CSS, and everything, you can click on Bootcamps and then full stack Elixir and Phoenix. And here you have the complete thing. You also have videos for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Git, SQL, and then a couple of things as optional at the bottom, okay? So yeah, if you want other learning resources, take a look at Tech School. It's my little side project, and it is 100% free. Okay, so to finish this video, we're gonna install Elixir and run IEX. Now, to install Elixir, super easy. You click on Install, and then you search for your operating system. On my case, I am using macOS. So for macOS, I'm using the unofficial package manager, which is called Homebrew. And you can even use it for Linux if you have Linux. So this is what I'm gonna run. I already have Elixir installed on my machine. So what you have to do is search for the operating system that you have, copy the command, then open the terminal, and then you're gonna install Elixir. I already have it installed, and then now Brew is gonna do the annoying auto update thing, which usually takes a while. But yeah, I already have Elixir installed. Once you have it installed, another thing that I wanted to recommend before we learn about IEX is, throughout this course, we're gonna use VSCode as the code editor. So go to your VSCode, and I recommend installing one extension called Elixir LS. This is the language server for Elixir, which is responsible for giving you autocomplete, IntelliSense, and a bunch of other goodies. So install Elixir LS on your VS Code, and then go back to your terminal. Finally, we have Elixir installed. And to check if Elixir is installed for you, all you have to do is type elixir-v. You should get a message similar to this one, all right? If you get an error, then yeah, you didn't install it correctly. Now, let me start IEX. What is IEX? it stands for Interactive Elixir. This is how you run your Elixir program on the terminal. Now, you can use IEX to run your entire program. This way you can debug functions and database calls and everything. Or you can just type IEX, which is the equivalent of like running Node on your terminal. I have an interactive shell here to play around with the language. So you're gonna type IEX, and the last lesson for this video is I wanna show you a way to learn about Elixir functions and modules. You're gonna type H, and that's it. The H in the terminal stands for help. So throughout the course, if I teach you a new function or a new module and you want to learn more from it, you can type H and then the name of your function, and this is how you learn from it. So let me get a very basic function called isNew, and you can press tab on the terminal to autocomplete, and there you go. As I said before, documentation is built in Elixir. You don't have to install anything. And the function, the documentation that I show you on the example here, this doc, this is what's going to show up on the terminal once you type H. Here I am using a native function for Elixir, but you can get help for any function, like a function that you created or a native one. So there you go. Now, before we proceed to the second tutorial, I highly recommend you start typing random things on the terminal, play around with Elixir, type H and whatever other function you want, like is, and then click tab, and then you're gonna have a bunch of auto suggestions. Now, yeah, play around with it. Type H, whatever the function name you want to check, and read the documentation. But that's pretty much it for today's video. On the next crash course, we're gonna go over basic types. And that's it. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.